Hello, you're listening to Count Richard von Coudenhove kalergi. I'd like to make a couple of observations on today. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Trump for all his help in actually meeting the North Korean leader. I thought it was incredible the way the two of them actually met. I thought he was very courteous, gracious, and hospitable towards the North Korean leader and made them very welcome. And I think that is the way to actually be diplomatic with people rather than trying to get their backs up. The other thing I found interesting was the way RTE actually covered it. And at the 1 o'clock news today, they had an interview with the member of the Guardian newspaper who, of course, thought that the Trump meeting was a waste of time. But I suppose what would you expect from the Guardian? Now, initially I was a bit of a critic when Trump actually came to power. I thought the fact that he did not have much or any political experience might actually be a hindrance, but I think is actually, if you pardon the pun, he's actually playing a trump card. And I started to come around to his style of things when last year he mentioned what was actually happening in Sweden. He was at a rally in Florida and he happened to bring up the topic of what was going on in Sweden. And he said, Sweden, who would believe what's going on in Sweden? And he was slated by the press. But yet last year, when the Swedish authorities released their crime figures in March of this year for 2017, there was 7,200 rapes, there was 6,000 cars burnt out, there was 200 explosions, of which 50 were hand grenade attacks, including attacks on police stations, and there was, I think, 150 shootings with 40 deaths. And most of it were crimes were actually committed by migrants. And in fact, later on in February of last year, there was a Peter Springer, who was a 45-year police veteran, released a Facebook post where he commented on that the 18 cases he was actually dealing with all were named Muhammad or variations of Muhammad, and that included rape, robbery, assault, burglary and antisocial behaviour, and he just said that he had enough of it. But to follow up on the Trump with Sweden, when Stefan Löfven, the Swedish Prime Minister, visited the White House in March of this year, Trump actually said right in front of him that he was the first to actually point out the problems that Sweden was actually having in migrations. And I thought, he's got some balls to do that. So I'm kind of reminded of Pat Rabbit when he was on the Vincent Brown show one night. He said that regarding electoral promises, that, oh sure, look, we only said that to get elected. Well, I wonder what was he think of Mr. Trump when he actually says that he's going to do things when he's getting elected and actually does them when he's actually elected. I wish we had more politicians a bit like him who actually did what they said that they would do rather than just make populist decisions. So there are just a couple of my thoughts, which are my own. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.